What's up, everybody? This is your boy Showtime Doctor. I'm back. I'm mostly over the sickness, a little bit of throat gunk still. So, if my voice loses it a couple times or you see me gulping water, that's why. It's just the way biology is. So, anyways, this is going to be your updated Taiyo guide, and just to showcase Ian as well. I'm going to do an Ian guide later on because I got a guildie that actually built Ian almost exactly like I'm going to build him. And he's much farther along than I am, so I'm just going to go ahead and show him, and then we'll take him out. I'll show you the tile dungeon later, but most of you guys want to see the characters before we go, so this is what he looks like. I'll show you right now. So he's chosen to skill up his 1, which is a solid choice because you really want that taunt to eventually be 2 turns. So yeah, skilling up the 1 first is excellent. That's your one-hit target taunt, by the way. On his 2, he's got penetration damage, attack to 2 enemies, 60% chance to decrease attack by 30%. I would actually personally skill this up because it also heals his health. It's on the 3-turn cooldown. And it has like a 2 enemy attack right there, so that's pretty cool. And then once you get it leveled all the way, it's going to have 80% chance to decrease target's attack. And restores health by 40%, which is fairly ridiculous. The only real self-healing tank I can think of in the game that's not like regen heal. And then on his ultimate, the funny thing about Ian's ultimate, it hits as hard as a lot of the attacker ultimates, except for, you know, they penetrate or a lot of them ignore defense, etc. But, you know, 300, that's what like Morgan's or Ruby or whoever you could name. That's what their ultimate percentage damage base is. Now, he's a tank, so his attack's not going to be so high. It's kind of weird that they're using a werewolf as a tank role, but whatever. Not the person in charge. But the cool part about this is 80% chance to remove all buffs and 80% chance to stun the target for a turn once you get it leveled all the way. On a 5-turn cooldown, that's really strong. So, but that's the way this character works. I'm sure if you guys know his passives. If you don't, he's throwing out one of those protection shields. That's the little circular things that go out sometimes when he's hit to protect other casters. So he automatically does 1 at the start of the wave, or his turn, which is pretty ridiculous. And then he restores his HP by 20 and remove a debuff if his HP is below 50%. And he reduces damage taken per surviving ally. So this guy, mitigation-wise and protection-wise, is super nuts. And then, you know, anytime an ally or an enemy dies, he's restoring health, and he has a chance to taunt everybody 60% whenever an ally dies. So that's super strong, especially in the Ian dungeon. And the way that my boy Nacho LOL has him worked up here, personally, I wouldn't give him crit strike. I think accuracy comes no matter what. Let's see here. At least 10% of it does. I would have done more counter, probably, or multi. I'll show you the runes in a second. But as you can see here, he has some sick base regen on him. Max health, you know, it's not quite there, but his defense is solid with that 5,000. And this is Ian, so he really doesn't need huge max health most of the time, unless there's going to be a huge burst hero like, say, Kali. So that's cool, but for the most part, I'd copy his outlook here. So he's chosen to do defense and HP. You see there, a lot of HP increase, a little bit of accuracy. And this is where all the HP recovery is going to come into play. And he chose crit strike chance here. I think what he probably did is he already had this rune worked up to plus 12, so he figured rather than work up a rune with, say, multi or something else that's a little more useful for the tank. And, you know, maybe if he crits his ulti, maybe that's actually a significant chunk of damage there, but... So pretty much, you know, he's got some awesome runes on him. As far as hero talents, you know, it's your standard tank stuff. More defense, decreased damage taken by bosses, chance to reduce attack with your 1, 20% chance to grant protection. That's the same thing as his passive does. So it's not uncommon when you have Ian as a tank to see 3 protections up just because he's got most people taunted and he's proccing this more and more. And he gets the automatic one. Then damage immunity, that's always solid as well. So, and then, just so you guys know, a quick note on your purple stars. It's usually not worth it to blow like 4 SSRs to get the 6-star on your tank, because the only thing that's useful is the counter strike chance. And, you know, if you really want to go for it, but you can spend your resources wiser the way that this game works with resources. But anyway, so that's the way the tank is. Now I'll show you the rest of the characters that were getting used. And then we'll go to the video so you guys can see how ridiculous this run was. It's pretty funny. So right here, see who I was working. Okay. So whenever Ian is actually in, because I actually use Eamon, the tank. This is my Eamon right here, when I'm just doing it by myself. But whenever I have Ian in as the friend unit, I actually put Ruby as the leader because Ruby's leadership is 60% attack if all the heroes are wind, versus Kali having 40%. So, but put Kali in if you run any other thing. As far as it, once you can do this, if you're not just starting out, I guess I should clarify this. I have a Taiyo guide up on how you can cheese him pretty easily with like Cordelia, 3 supports, and then a DPS, hopefully Ruby, but whatever you got that's wind. It could be an SR, it could be an R, as long as it's wind, because you really need wind for the second hero in that advent. But this is going to be an updated guide because I recognize a little bit more of the mechanics, and then I can show you some tips and tricks with some of the newer heroes I've gotten. If you guys happen to have been playing for a month or so and you've upgraded your characters a bit. But if you're a newer player, I would highly suggest watching my old guide just because it's a little bit easier to build up for. And beating Taiyo is not that hard. You can get there in, assuming you have the heroes like Cordelia and stuff, you can get there in 2 or 3 days and be fine as long as you're using a friend unit that's fairly powerful. But anyway, so that's just the advice there. So what I'm running Cowley. Normally I'll run Ruby as leader. You can see I haven't really put that much love into Ruby. Don't quite need it at the moment with Kali. But Ruby's still pretty good. That's the way I got her geared right now. I'm not going to go overly into everything, but she's geared for DPS and boss encounters, so that's the way that goes. And then, since she's standing next to the tank, Ruby's days are numbered once we hit phase 2 and the third phase. Or phase 2 and the third fight, rather. And then what you want, if you can swing it, do 2 wind DPSs like I'm doing. So I got Kali here once again. Kali increasing attack by 40% for all my wind heroes. She hides, and then when she's hiding, she puts up poison, so that's pretty cool. And then she has a full 100% resolve, and there's no anti-healing mechanics in this dungeon, so that's nice. And then she inflicts 40% additional damage when attacking a target afflicted with damage over time, so she's putting up poison, and then any other damage over time you see. On her 1, she has a brand, so that really helps with amping damage. And she decreases target's buff duration by a turn when she's hidden. I'll show you a place where that's actually really good in this dungeon later on. So on her 2, she also puts up bleeding, so that's another dot that she can take advantage of with this mechanic here of doing more damage to damage over time. Characters inflicted by damage over time. Also, keep in mind with Callie, I know a lot of you don't have her. I'm not trying to be like 1% here. I just barely got her, honestly. But anytime she's hidden, she has basically a 50% chance to hide whenever she does anything. There's always extra things that happen on all her skills. So on her 1, she decreases target duration if she's hidden. On her 2, she's actually going to be doing 2 additional targets and cause them to bleed for 30% of attack. And hit them for about 30% of attack as well, on top of her single target damage. And those are 2 random targets, by the way. But it's cool to get more bleeds out as well. And then on her 3, this really isn't a hidden mechanic, actually. But if she kills someone with her 3, that's why I've been skilling her up. She's increasing her attack damage by 40% if it kills somebody, so that's pretty gnarly. It does penetration damage, does extra damage on attack types. So it's pretty strong. So that's what I'm running there. As far as my supports go, Sid. I consider Sid to be the character that really unlocks endgame once you can do Sid's dungeon. Pretty much you should be able to do almost every other dungeon. That's out for now, in my opinion. Sid just makes things so much easier with all his passive shields and stuff he puts up. I've gone ahead and worked up his 2. So it's decreasing skill cooldowns by 1, and it restores 40% versus 20%. Also, I've worked up his ulti, so normally it's 1 ally, 40% of health, and decreased skill cooldowns by 1. When you get to 6, it's 2 allies, 70%, and decreased skill cooldowns by 2, so it's really gnarly. And then Fluttering Feathers, if you don't know what that is, he has a self-revive as well, and he hands out damage immunities. once HP drops below 30 for one of your allies. But this Fluttering Feather stack, basically, once he has 3, he puts up a shield for 30% of his health. So I actually geared him to do lots and lots of health, and I actually need to give him another purple star so we can get him 20% more. Real quick before I leave Callie, I actually forgot to show you. I don't have her excelling in anything right now. I'll probably re-rune her, but as she is now, she's fine for this advent. The set bonuses I chose to give her are attack percentage and inflicts 20% additional damage if target has continuous damage effects, so dots. So that stacks with her other passive. So that's going to go ahead and give her 60% additional damage against anyone with a dot effect on them. A poison, a bleed, a shock, etc. So that's pretty gnarly. And then I gave her as much attack and then some crit strike chance. Multi is actually really good on her, or counter, because it gives her an additional chance to proc her hidden. So that's pretty cool. Sid right now, you know, he's just all multi-strike and a little bit of HP recovery, as much health as I can possibly get him. So I got 3 health bonuses there. And then Ramuh, the cool thing about Ramuh, restores 10% of HP at the end of every turn. Really good in this dungeon. HP regen is godly, especially if you're newer to the game and you're running the Cordelia comp I recommend in my other videos. Although, if you've been in a guild for now, you should have access to Ian, so highly recommend building up Ian. And you know, she's there for support. She has a stun on her 1, on her 2 is a heal and reduced debuff duration, on her 3 is a revive. So it's pretty, she's super strong in here. Now, Ruby, you know, she's just there to be my extra DPS, pretty much, is how it goes. I switch her into the leadership role whenever I take my frenzy in, but until I get mine built up, for the most part. You know, Ruby's there. Just solid damage overall. She's going to drop. All your DPS is going to drop. You see, I haven't even worked her runes up that much, because I don't really use her too well. I should, actually, but that's just the way it is. So anyways, let's get into it now. I'm going to show you the video. I have that tab up. Alright, hold on. There we go. Okay, so we're going to start the video now. So I muted it because I did it during my stream and it has a bunch of copyrighted music, etc. So just deal with it. So your phase 1 here. By the way, this is a showcase of Ian as well. And then Callie right there is hidden. I put Callie next to Ian this time because so we could get the extra damage bonus. Normally, if you run this dungeon first time, you want to put either Cordelia or Ramuh as leader because you want the extra health or defense. This first guy, he's susceptible to everything. You can see Callie's already nailed him with poison. You can put Mental Seal on him. You can proc Lumen Death on him. Engraving works. I think in my later runs, I actually did Engraving of Destruction on him because at about 50% health is when he ults. Howard. Howard is this guy's name. He has a Resolve. The Resolve, it heals him up to about, I think it's like 30%. It's somewhere around there. So if you got an effect that stops heal, like, you know, Kane or something like that, reduce healing, that makes this one a little bit easier. It also works on the second boss who has a Resolve. Third boss has a Revive, so you can't really stop it, unfortunately. But you see here, he's at about 50%, so next time he takes a turn, he's going to do his, like, super triple attack. As you see there, Ian's actually, look at all those damage. Just keep in mind during this entire battle, look at all the damage immunity and the protection procs that go off. Actually pretty ridiculous, so. You know what? Even though I normally, because you can see my head right there, but let me move myself. Ah, screw it, I'll make myself smaller. Because I want you guys to see the skills. Alright, so the basic thing to remember about this guy is when he taunts you, he has like an AoE taunt. Anyone that's taunted does less damage to him. That's one of his passives. And then pretty much after that, it's just a tank and spank, honestly. So this first guy shouldn't be a huge issue to you, especially if you have something like Looming Death or Engraving of Destruction, etc. Now, in my previous video, I showed you, you don't even need a tank that has purple stars necessarily. They help, and they're great, but if you're running triple support, 1 DPS, and like a Cordelia or an Ian, you just basically have to work up their defense right around 3,400 armor, and then get them about 12 to 14% regen. and as much health as you can get on him, and you're good to go for your tank. Your tank should be able to handle things no matter what. It's just a matter of keeping your supports up at that point. So there's his resolve right there. That's the thing I don't like about this dungeon, especially for newer players, is the resolve makes it so long, because you basically have to kill everybody twice. Even at reduced health, it's pretty annoying. But Ian himself, he's not going to do anything different once he gets his resolve. It's just at 50%, he'll start doing his ult on cooldown, that's it. He'll taunt you. If you have a Rue will just dispel the taunt. Otherwise, you know, just write it out. Watch his counters. He counters fairly frequently. There's his triple attack again. And what you're trying to do in this phase, you're trying to make it through with all your cooldowns. And what I mean by that is anything like Sid, anyone getting less than 30% health, that will proc his protection proc. You really rather save that for at least the second or the third boss in here. And same thing, Kali's resolve, Ramuh's extra life. If you have like Rue in here, Rue's resolve, etc. You're especially trying to save your supports skills for later. So this guy right here, this is Ronan. So Kali actually ends up being really good for Ronan. I'll show you why later. But Ronan, the way he works, and he works the same throughout the entire fight, even after resolve. His first 2 turns, he's going to hit basic like that. The next turn, he's going to buff up. When he buffs up, he's going to buff his evasion, his attack, and his crit chance. Now, every time that Ronan evades, I don't know what they've tuned it to in this dungeon, but it's actually... random text. It's actually 10% on his kit at 6-star. He gets 10% more attack, stacking up to 5 times every time he dodges. And right there, you just saw his ult. It penetrates, so most shields aren't going to stop it, except for like an evasion shield or a shield like Abel's shield that absorbs and heals your HP. You see how Ian's basically in no damage whatsoever here. Then we got 3 shield procs, which is pretty funny. But anyways, the reason that Kali actually works so well on him, when this guy self-buffs and you use your 1 and Kali's hidden, Kali reduces buff duration. So basically, you see right there, he ulted without his buffs up. And go back and watch it, because I didn't really call it fast enough there. But pretty much, he has his buffs up for 2 turns. After he buffs, his next turn, he does a regular attack. And then the turn after that, he ults. So if you can reduce the duration of it, he's gonna ult without the attack percentage buff and without the critical strike chance buff. And then his evasion buff's gone, so you can go back to DPSing him like normal. Now, if you're newer in this dungeon, be careful about attacking with your supports, especially when the evasion's up, because he counters fairly hard and you're stacking his attack at the same time. So you don't want to get in a situation where you're blowing cooldowns on something that doesn't, you know, it's going to do like 2,000 damage or whatever, depending on how well geared you are. Do you see all those protections going out there? The power of Ian right there. That's a pretty gnarly dude. So, see here. And man, dude, this is going so much faster. I remember when this dungeon used to take me like 30 to 40 minutes. Now I've almost killed him already. We've already gone through his first life. It's just so interesting. The Taiyo dungeon, I mean, it had to be easier anyways, because we could cheese it earlier with those combos. You know, like the 60 tank. You could run like a 56 Ramuh as long as you had 2 other decent supports. And a Ruby, as you saw, with like +3, +6 runes. And not even purple starred at all. That's what I used to run before I got Kali. So this dungeon's not hard, it's just like annoying because it's so long. My opinion. So one of the things, and I'm not quite sure about this, I thought poison stops all healing. It definitely does for your party. But I had poison up a couple times. I don't know if on this particular run, when resolve procced for the enemy, and the resolve basically still healed them. So that was kind of odd. Maybe it was because it cleared itself, I'm not sure, but... Anyway, so here we go, we got the Taiyo. So your boy Taiyo, the way he works, the first 5 turns, any type of ultimate attack, your 3s, is gonna do, I forget the percentage less damage, but I think it's like 50%. Right there. Whenever he does that triple attack with like the beating thing, He debuffs his own counter-strike chance and multi-chance by... In his kit, it's 80%. I'm not sure what it is in this dungeon. And Taiyo counters and multis 50% harder than his normal attacks. So if you're going to attack him, be super sure like you got that shield up there, like Sid's shield, or you got enough health and mitigation to survive. Because Taiyo can really surprise you with his damage and his burst on occasion. So, but pretty much after 5 turns passes by, go ahead and just start thracking him as hard as you can. Taiyo's water, so do not bring a water hero in here because he will absorb all the damage. His healing. And you see there, Taiyo's almost doing nothing to Ian. Oh, Ian's pretty gnarly there. And this is like just like a super simple team. I'm sorry, let me explain Taiyo's mechanics more. So, when you get Taiyo to about half health, he's going to do his ultimate. And unlike in his kit when we have him, his ultimate does cone damage. And it'll basically one-shot everything that's not a tank. And maybe a pretty buff healer that's defending, like Ramu, maybe Sid, etc. But he hits super hard, and then he does that, his one is just like his combo attack. Usually it's not hitting too hard, but if he follows up, that's going to hit 50% harder, like I said. So with your tank, you're just trying to keep him taunted, keep that attack down debuff on him. Sid's going to help you with some shields if you happen to have Sid with you, and then just keep your DPSs around. Now, potential issue in this fight is if your tank goes down for whatever reason, or if like one of your healers or something pulls aggro, or Taiyo's just focusing someone that's right next to your healers. Try to keep your healers, as you see there, I got them in the 2 and 3 spot, to where at least one of them will survive if Taiyo decides to focus one of the attack units. Because he normally focuses an attack unit after if the tank goes down for whatever reason, or if the tank doesn't have aggro, which happens fairly rarely. As you see there, that's Sid's shield proc there. So pretty much, we got increased attack 30%, and we got damage immunity for a turn on all those characters. That's pretty gnarly, and that was really nice because that was right about half health where he did his ultimate. He only does his ultimate one time in the first phase, and we'll get to the second phase where he does it much more frequently. But pretty much, you know, Taiyo's actually not that difficult once you get into the game. I've had people in my videos commenting, yo, I've been playing the game 18 days, I just killed Taiyo for the first time. You know, thanks in part to yours and other people's videos, and that's why I make these videos, guys. It's just, you know, I want to see everybody succeed. I want to see all of us be able to do all the content that we can at the point in the game that we're at. So, but I'm sure right now you see how ridiculous Ian is. There's Callie doing a butt ton of damage right there. So then another note to do, once you kill Taiyo for the first time, he's going to revive and get about, I think it's about half his health. It might be a little less. Whoever you put next to the tank is going to die. It's just the way it is. So that's why I don't put a support by the tank. At least in this case. I used to when I had 3 supports. But Callie actually does more damage than Ruby. But the reason, because Ruby, I'm using Ruby's leadership, like I said, for the 60% bonus attack. So it's just the way it is. Callie's going to die. And hopefully, if you got your Ian there or whatever tank you have a protection proc like that, so she'll survive a couple rounds. Callie does have a full life resolve as well, so she will stay up a little bit more compared to Ruby, who will most certainly die. And you know, just try to keep your team topped off as much as possible, keep Taiyo taunted as much as possible, etc. Get that regen going. So there you go. So now he starts with ult immediately. You see how protection was up. So she didn't get hit. And now she's hidden, but she can still be hit, but protection just procced again, so that's pretty funny. So pretty much even though Taiyo's going to do his ulti again, he's not going to kill her. That's pretty hilarious. And so the way that this phase works is he will do his regular attack, and then he will do his ultimate attack. And it just cycles back and forth. He can multi, he can still counter. And remember, he multis and he counters 50% harder. But otherwise in this phase, there's nothing else like really significant going on. So if you happen to get here with your Cordelia or your tank, whoever your tank may be, and everyone else is dead, you can still solo him, assuming you have like 12% regen. What you excuse me. What you need to do is defend whenever he's going to ult next turn, and then hit him whenever he's not ulting next turn. Now his ult can stun you, so in that case you usually just want to defend twice, depending on how powerful your tank is, because even though your tank can mitigate most of his damage, if he gets to the point where he multis both times and he crits the ult and he crits the multi and then he gets a counter because you decide to hit him, or you got stunned and you couldn't defend, so then he gets another multi, he can burst you down even from full life. So be extra careful about that. But this is pretty much, guys, Ian's ridiculous. Ian's like one of the best, crazier tanks in the game right now. And so that's the way I'm doing my Cowlies now. If you want a more in-depth guide on how the dungeon works, you know, go ahead and look up my old video on the Taiyo Advent. This is just here to show you some more uses for some extra characters that have come out since then or that I've acquired since then. So the heck's with that Street Fighter perv video? The heck? Anyways, excuse me, guys. I am Showtimedr on Twitch. You found my YouTube. Gonna make myself bigger again. Make my monster growl. So, check the notes. There's a link to my Discord. You can come in there, ask questions, share your experiences. You know, have some fun with the community. We're all anime heads in there, so we have a good time. And I'll be making a couple more videos today. I'm planning 3 more. One's going to be updated Christian Advent guide. One is going to be a showcase around Ian, and another showcase around Kali. So, and anyways, guys, I'll catch you all later. Have a great day. Farm hard. Get strong.